Okay. How many of you guys have ever had to sacrifice? How many of you guys have ever had to make a hard decision? Have had to do something that maybe you never envisioned for your life? I'm about to tell a story of someone who truly lived by this idea of sacrifice and strength. This is a story of my ba. Her name was Hemkur Ben Maru, and she was born in a rural village in Bharat on the 1st of June 1925. Now, the village that she grew up in was a typical one for that time in Bharat. The girls in that village had one job: to grow up and learn how to become the ideal housewife. By the age of 13, 14, the ambition was that they would be married and sent away to essentially serve their in-laws, to be the perfect wife. My ba was different. She persisted. She fought. And when her parents said she couldn't have an education, she snuck out the house. When they said she shouldn't be studying, she should be focusing on cooking, or focusing on cleaning, or focusing on serving her parents, she studied. But she couldn't escape the system. So that meant when she was 14, her parents decided that it was time. You've gone away, you've snuck away, you've gone out, you studied, but you will get married. You will follow the tradition of this village and you will get married. So at the age of 14, they went away, they found a husband for her, and at a blink of an eye, she was married. Now that is typical of the girls of that age. But what wasn't so typical is what happened in the next 6 months. In the next 6 months, her husband passed away. At the age of 14, she became a widower. And if that grief wasn't enough to destroy a young girl's life, her sister and brother-in-law also passed away at the same time and left behind an orphan child. Now, back in those days in Bharat, from what I understand, orphan children, if they didn't have a support system around them, if they didn't have a big family structure, they would often end up on the streets, doing anything they could to survive. My ba decided, at the age of 14 and a half, that she could not let this happen to her nephew. That she was going to do something about it. That she was going to make sure that her nephew doesn't end up on the streets begging for his next meal. So she adopted him. Now the villagers, you can just imagine their reaction. A 14-and-a-half-year-old girl, recent widower, has decided to adopt a 5-year-old child. A child herself. The villagers said no. The villagers said, let him be. He will find a way to survive. Go out, there'll be other husbands, remarry. You can have a great life. But she decided no. She decided that she was going to be the person that would support him. And she grafted and she toiled and she cooked and she cleaned, earning as many rupiah as she could so that she could send him away to be educated. The opportunities that she didn't have, she was going to be determined to ensure that he had. With the little education she had, she tutored the boys that went to the schools and created an atmosphere that was nurturing for them. Now, her nephew ended up going on to become a doctor, moved to England, had his own kids, got married himself. She followed him along this journey. That brings us to the next phase of her life. She never remarried. She spent her whole life ensuring that her nephew could have the best future. And at the frail age of 70, her nephew ended up passing away. He left behind 3 children, the oldest of them being my mother. Now, my mother's situation was unique in that even for those days, she ended up having a love marriage when she got married in the early 90s. And because of the nature of the marriage that my parents wanted to pursue, she was unaccepted by her in-laws because she came from a lower background. That meant life was tough for my parents when they first became married. That meant that, unfortunately, they lost the support network of any family from my dad's side. Dad was shunned away, my mother was shunned away, and that meant that they had to work for a living. At that stage, many mothers would actually spend their time raising their kids, but instead, what she ended up doing was going to work. And that meant that her kids, myself and my brother, had to go somewhere to be raised. So my childhood was somewhat unique in the way that I don't remember my mother putting me to bed, or teaching me to walk, or feeding me every day. Instead, what I remember was being dropped off to my ba's house every day, while my mother went to work, and she being the one to raise me. She was the one who changed my nappies. So even at the age of 70, 80, when she should have been resting, when she should have had life a little bit easier for herself, because she had already raised the child. She had already helped raise his children. She ended up raising the children's children as well. Now that, to me, truly shows Shakti and Tyag. And I think, to me, that message and the lessons that I've learned from my ba, to never give up, to always realize that actually you put yourself above the other to ensure that everyone else can progress forward, is something that I take upon myself every day. And I hope it's something that we can all learn a lesson from as well. Namaste.